over to world news, where Iran's president has vowed to take action against protesters after more than a week of anti-government demonstrations. President Ibrahim Raisi pledged to deal decisively with the protests, which have now spread to most of Iran's 31 provinces. At least 41 demonstrators and security services officers have been killed since protests broke out over the death of Mahsa Amini in police custody. Our chief correspondent John Cookson has the story.
Iranians have taken to the streets for a 10th consecutive night to protest against the death of Mahsa Amini. Iran's largest protests in almost 3 years have seen security forces fire live rounds, while protesters have hurled rocks, torched police cars and set fire to state buildings. Officially, at least 41 people have died since the unrest began, most of them protesters, but also members of Iran's security forces have lost their lives. 22-year-old Mahsa was detained by Iran's morality police for allegedly not properly wearing a head covering, the hijab. The headscarf has been compulsory for women in Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, and members of the morality police enforce the strict dress code. These are the last known images of her in custody, where Iranian authorities claim she'd had a heart attack. Her family say she had no history of heart disease. A cousin, Efo Montazei, says, Mahsa is the voice of the anger of the Iranian people right now. Mahsa has sparked this anger because when she died, the Islamic Republic tried to bury her secretly at night without anyone knowing. Fortunately, the people in her hometown of Sarkez prevented this plot and didn't allow this. Mahsa's death has sparked protests outside Iran, calling for an end to the Islamic regime in Tehran. This was Paris. This human rights activist said, "Today is not just about Mahsa, it's also to show our hatred of the Islamic Republic." Angry scenes too outside the Iranian embassy in London. Demonstrations here left 11 police injured. And fury too across the Atlantic, where demonstrators in Atlanta brought streets to a standstill. A growing anger which is resonating across the world. John Cookson, Arise News.
And John Cookson joins us now from London for more. Good day. Now, straight into it, what more do we know about the death of this young woman in morality police custody?
Hi ladies, great to be on Newsday as always. Well, we've got a few little bit more bits of information about what happened. Her father saying that when he was allowed to view the body, he was only shown the head and the feet, because the rest of this young woman's body was wrapped, so he couldn't see it. He said that her feet had bruising. And a cousin has been talking and saying that she was on a shopping trip to Tehran with her brother, Ashkan. They were walking down the street. The hair on her head was slightly poking out from beneath a loose scarf that she was wearing. She was approached by the morality police, and I've worked as a journalist in Tehran and know that morality police are mostly women, sometimes women who walk around with whips to enforce dress code in Tehran. We don't know how many of these morality police were involved, but Ms. Amini pleaded that she wasn't used to being accosted like this in Tehran. She was from another city about 500 kilometers away, and that she apologized. It seems that she was hit on the head with a baton, and as she fell, she caught her head on a morality police wagon. Now, these are just the sparsest of details, a lot of it disputed by the Iranian authorities, and we're waiting really for a post-mortem, which the results of which haven't been released, although how many of her supporters, as you can see, the demonstrations are huge, across Iran. How would they believe what the Iranian authorities say? I doubt very much. The Iranian authorities saying that she had heart problems, although the family say that she had no trouble at all with her heart. So a tragic event in Tehran. There are some issues that will still need to be explained. This young woman was Kurdish. The Kurdish community in Iran is one of the most persecuted of all the minorities in Iran. They mostly live in the northwest of the country, and they don't regard themselves as Iranian at all. They believe that they're Kurdish and they're part of a Kurdish homeland. And as a result of that, it's a region used to a lot of rebellion against the regime in Tehran. So what this young woman was doing 500 kilometers from her home, walking down the street with the hijab quite not in place, remains to be seen, and maybe we'll never get to the bottom of that. But as I say, a tragic case which has sparked demonstrations in various parts of the world.
Tragic indeed, John. Now, how do you think the Iranian authorities will react if demonstrations continue?
Over the years, since the Islamic Revolution 43 years ago now, in 1979, there have been crackdowns from time to time on the general population, because Iran, especially in the era of social media, is a complete powder keg ready to blow at any time. Young people are, in general terms, in the cities, the sophisticated young people with access to the internet, they've had enough of the Islamic regime. But there are still millions of people in Iran who are quite happy with the way that the country is run. And what happens from time to time is that we have these protests, something sparks off a protest in a city, and then the demonstrations elsewhere. This has happened time and time again since 1979. The last time was in 2019. And what happens is that the authorities are quite happy for these demonstrations to take place, because it's like raising the top of a pressure cooker off for a little while and then push back down again. In other words, letting the whole country let off steam. And what happens is that there's a brutal crackdown after, we've seen 10 days of demonstrations. We're about at the limit now, I think, of where the regime will come in hard and stop what's going on in the streets of Iran.
Now, given that context, could this in any way mark the beginning of the end of the Islamic Republic?
Not at the moment, no. Look, Iran is a country where you even have spies in your own family. The Iranians don't trust all their family members not to report them for something un-Islamic to the local cadres. Ayatollah Khamenei, who we're looking at pictures of now, very much in charge of the country, supported by the militia known as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And although what's going on at the moment is certainly a challenge to the regime, it's by no means the beginning of the end of the Islamic Revolution that began in 1979. There's a long, long way to go yet.
Well, finally, John, just before we let you go, there are reports of concerns about the health of Iran's spiritual leader. What more can you tell us about this?
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been suffering from prostate cancer for, at least 15 years now, and he flies in the finest surgeons and medical help that he can get, and he's 83 years old, and so, he's coming to the end of his life. Anyway, there have been reports that the cancer has taken a hold on him. I've seen reports that he's on his deathbed, which he clearly isn't, because he appeared on television on September the 17th was the last time that anyone saw him. So I think reports of his extreme illness are perhaps exaggerated at the moment, but he's certainly a sick old man. So what happens after that? Well, when he dies, as he surely will, a special committee of 88 clerics will choose a successor, and they've probably got someone in mind already. It could include his son, who is 55 years old, or even the current president certainly has the religious credentials to take over. And indeed, Ali Khamenei was the president of Iran before he was appointed spiritual leader when Ayatollah Khomeini died in 1989.
All right, that's our chief correspondent, John Cookson. Thank you so much for your time and your insight, as always.